Very much. I hear the Brooklyn podcast I'm responsible for. It was a long time ago. Let me thank the West Palm Democrats for inviting me to be with you today. Because what they are trying to do and what you are trying to do simply does not happen as often as it should. What are we doing? We're going to sit down, we're going to talk about the problems facing our country. I'm going to answer your questions as best I can. You're going to make your comments. This is an old-fashioned idea called democracy. And we don't do enough of it in America, so I want to congratulate the West Palm Democrats for strongly advocating it. I should tell you that in Vermont, we do this all the time. We do, in my life, we've done hundreds and hundreds of meetings like this, big ones, small ones, and I enjoy doing it, so it's great to be here. Let me start off, take it back to January 2009, with the new president being sworn into office. I want to bring you back to where we were at that moment, and then we can discuss how we got there, and then we can discuss what we're doing that's right, what we're doing that is wrong. January 2009, when President Obama took the oath of office, he came into power at a moment in which our country was experiencing the worst series of crises since the Great Depression. I want you to spend a moment on this. When Obama was sworn in, there was some question or not as to whether the world's financial system would collapse. Some of you who are older may have lived through the Great Depression. There were economists who were suggesting that this depression, if the banks collapsed, would have been even worse. When Obama took office, 700,000 people a month were losing their jobs, and we were in the midst of the worst recession in 80 years. And obviously that recession continues today. And if you look at the real figures, you go beyond the official figures, looking at about 17% of the American people are either unemployed or underemployed, meaning they want to work 40 hours and they are working 20 hours. That is a disaster. You have a financial system on the verge of collapse, you have massive unemployment, a deep recession. Obama comes into office after 8 years of the worst administration in the modern history of America. And what is not widely known is that during that period, median family income declined by over $2,000. Now people say, oh my goodness, financial collapse, recession, but you got to be very naive not to understand that the middle class has been shrinking for decades, and that was exacerbated during the Bush administration. So you have all over this country, millions of people working not 40 hours a week, they're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. They're working not one job, two jobs, maybe three jobs, trying to cobble together a living. That's what you got in the economy, that's what you got in financial institutions. You got a situation called global warming. I know Glenn Beck doesn't agree with it. I know Rush Limbaugh, those great meteorologists, weather scientists who have studied the issue for decades, but virtually every weather scientist in the world does agree. And we had an administration which not only did nothing to move us away from greenhouse gas emissions and fossil fuels, but basically did not accept science, which is a very dangerous thing for a modern society to do, to reject science. So we had continuation of greenhouse gas emissions. Other parts of the world are moving towards sustainable energy, moving to energy efficiency, and we're debating whether in fact the reality exists. Under President Bush, we were not in one war, we were in two wars. And certainly, as I think many of you will agree, the war in Iraq had no rational justification. It was a war we never should have gotten into. I want all of you to remember that when you turn on the TV tonight, you see some of our Republican friends telling us how terrible the deficit situation is. remind them exactly about who caused this damn deficit to begin with. And that was, among other things, a war in Iraq, which will end up costing us somewhere between $2 and $3 trillion when the last veteran wounded in that war is taken care of. You had huge tax breaks for the wealthiest people unpaid for. You had a Medicare Part D program written by insurance companies unpaid for, etc., etc. And doesn't take a PhD in economics to figure out when you spend trillions of dollars and you don't pay for it, your deficit is going to go up. So Obama inherited a huge deficit and a huge national debt. He inherited 2 wars. And those are just some of the issues that were on this guy's plate. All right, so that's where we were. Where are we today? What have we done well? What have we not done well? What I think we have done well is a beginning, among other things, to address the energy crisis. And I know that many of you are concerned about energy and you are concerned about the environment. What you should know is that in the stimulus package alone, we put more money in energy efficiency and sustainable energy than I think we've done in the history of the United States of America. Are we doing enough? No. But are we beginning the process of breaking our dependency on foreign oil? We spend $350 billion every single year helping the royal family of Saudi Arabia become even wealthier. You know what? I think we all can think of better ways to spend that money. So what we are trying to do, and in fact we have in the last year and a half put a huge amount of money into energy efficiency. What does that mean? It means in my state we have a lot of older homes. We are weatherizing those homes. We're putting in insulation. We're putting in new windows, new roofs. People are seeing a substantial reduction in their heating bills and in the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that we're putting up in the atmosphere. We are just beginning to make the aggressive steps forward in sustainable energy. What do I mean by that? There is incredible potential in this country and in this state for such sustainables as solar energy. Well, that's the first one. It's not only so. We got solar, which certainly in Florida has huge potential. You got wind, which has huge potential. We had a town meeting last week in Burlington, Vermont. We had more people out there just to talk about geothermal than are in this room. Geothermal is a technology that has huge potential. Biomass in those parts of the country where you have wood and where you harvest that wood environmentally has huge potential. Now again, Vermont is not Florida. Our climate is a little bit different than yours. It gets 20 below zero on a winter day. We are heating 45 schools with wood chips. We have a major wood chip plant in the city of Burlington. We are starting a new pellet plant in the very northern part of the state. Our capital is a town called Montpelier, Vermont, not a big town, 12,000 people. We got a grant so that I expect when you visit Montpelier in a couple of years in the middle of the winter, you will find that the entire downtown region will be heated in a central way, what we call district heating by wood. How's that? And if that works in Burlington, if that works in Montpelier, it will work in other towns in the state. This is what else we're doing. Up in the northern part of our state, a small town called Coventry. None of you have heard of it. There is an electric company, a co-op in central Vermont, that is getting about 70% of its electricity from a landfill. From the methane gas coming from a landfill is providing 70% of the electricity for a co-op, and it is cheap and sustainable electricity. In Vermont, we have dairy farms, and as you know, dairy cows poop. Either you can allow that manure to end up in our rivers or our lake or our streams, or you can capture that manure, encase it in cement, allow it to ferment, take the methane and produce electricity from that, which is what we are doing as well. So what I want to convey to you is in that area, we are beginning to make some real progress. What is the goal? The goal is breaking our dependency on foreign oil, so you don't have to fight wars in Iraq. You don't have to fight for oil, because we're not going to need foreign fuel. Number two, if we move to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, we're going to significantly cut back on greenhouse gas emissions. Third, and I say this as chairman of the Green Jobs Subcommittee of the Environmental Committee, we can create millions of good paying jobs as we do this process. So we are beginning to turn that around. We've come a long, long way from the Bush years in that regard. Now, in terms of financial institutions, this week, in fact, after I leave here, I'll be flying back tomorrow to Washington, and I'll be voting at 5 o'clock in the evening for what we call cloture on financial reform. Let me say a word about our good friends on Wall Street. Number one, it is hard to overstate the greed and the recklessness of these people. As all of you know, during the 90s and before that, there was a massive effort undertaken, led by Republicans, but also supported by many Democrats, to deregulate financial institutions. And what that was about, led by people like Alan Greenspan and Robin Rubin, and signed into law by President Bill Clinton. But the theory is if you deregulate our good friends on Wall Street, they will be able to operate more efficiently without government, the big bad hand of government. And in the process, they're going to create more wealth, which will trickle down to all of the American people. Now, when I was in the House, I was a member of the, what was called banking committee, it was called financial services. And every year, we would have Alan Greenspan, who was then head of the Fed, come before the committee, and Greenspan would explain this theory to us. I, for one, never believed it. And I, for one, voted against all of these deregulations. And it seemed to me then, and it seems to me now, that if you have somebody who is addicted to heroin, and you give them free license, you lock them in a room which has a lot of heroin, you would not be shocked if they overdosed, right? And if you say to people on Wall Street, whose only concern in life is to make as much money as they possibly can, as quickly as they possibly can, in any way they possibly can, why would you be shocked when they did just that? And the issue, I think, we're going to see, and we've begun to see that with Goldman Sachs in the last couple of weeks, but I think you're going to see a lot more of that. It is not just recklessness, and it is not just greed. It is, in my view, widespread illegal behavior. And one of the interesting things, and I don't know the outcome of this, one of the interesting things that we will be observing in the next couple of years is whether the criminal justice system of the United States of America has the capability of prosecuting some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in this country. But if there is any justice in this world, they should be prosecuted. Because what they have done, the millions and millions of lives that they have wrecked in Florida, your state has been hit by this, in Vermont, all over this country, in Nevada, in California, all over this country. Their greed has caused such a huge consequence in terms of lowering the standard of living, desperateness of people, suicides, families breaking up, people losing their jobs, that we have got to take severe action. Now, financial reform is coming up tomorrow night. Start. Go on for a couple of weeks. The bill, the basic bill that we're looking at is about 1,600 pages, so I'm not going to go through the whole basic bill. I could read it to you, but I won't. But I will tell you some of what I want you to watch to determine whether or not we are really doing serious financial reform. A lot of things that you can do which are positive, and I think this bill has a number of positive things. But here's some of the things that I consider to be serious elements, and it is, we will see how successful we will be in pursuing them. Number one, what many of you don't know is that we have 4 huge financial institutions in this country. That is the Bank of America, Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Citigroup. Those are the 4 largest. Collectively, these 4 banks issue 2/3 of the credit cards in America. Okay? They issue 1/2 of the mortgages in America. And in terms of their assets, what they own and control, the amount is over $7 trillion, which happens to be more than 50% of the gross domestic product of the United States of America. So there is a lot of discussion now in the Congress. What do we do to prevent another financial collapse so that taxpayers won't again ever have to bail these guys out? But I think that approach, that thought, misses the most important element. And that is, in my view, if a financial institution is quote-unquote too big to fail, it should be too big to exist. This is important for 2 reasons. Number one is the too big to fail phenomenon. And you all know what that means. That means if you have an institution of such enormity, which has so much economic influence over so many segments of our society, that if that institution collapses, it takes a significant part of the economy with it, and millions of jobs with it. And whatever people tell you, and you'll hear on television tonight, we're never going to go through this again. The reality is that when that day comes, and somebody says that Bank of America is going down, and if they go down, they're going to take half the economy, they are going to be bailed out. That's the reality no matter of what anyone says today. So what is the answer? The answer is not complicated. This is not just my idea. You got a lot of people all over the country, a lot of economists, you got 3 chairmen of regional feds saying the same thing. Break them up. Break them up. That's not only important from a too big to fail perspective, it is very important from an economic perspective. You know, with Teddy Roosevelt, back in the early 1900s, remember he was the great trust buster. He went around breaking up these big corporations because they stifled competition. You had Standard Oil, all these big guys having enormous economic influence over the economy. Well, if you have 4 banks owning over half the GDP of America, writing 2/3 of the credit cards, I think that is absolutely too much economic influence in the hands of a few banks. So we are going to be working hard. There's going to be an amendment coming up, and we're going to do everything we can to see that it's passed. But I have to tell you, what you already know is our friends on Wall Street have enormous power, and by definition, they have enormous amounts of money. In order to get deregulation, these people spent over a 10-year period $5 billion. Last year, as discussion of financial reform began, they spent $300 million. So right now, in Washington, D.C., you have all of these lobbyists, very powerful guys, walking around trying to prevent us from doing anything significant. So that's issue number 1, we've got to break them up. Issue number 2, which to me is very important. I get calls every single week from people in Vermont, and it's true in every state in the country, of folks who are paying 25, 30, 35% interest rates on their credit cards. Now, if you read the Bible, New Testament, Old Testament, read Islam, every major religion on earth, you know what they say? They say usury is immoral. Now, all of us know what loan sharking is. You know what loan sharking is? Loan sharking is when a gangster lends money to somebody who's desperate, charges them an outrageous rate, and if that person doesn't pay off, they break their kneecap or do whatever these guys do. Well, you got loan sharking taking place on Wall Street right now. So if these guys don't break people's kneecaps, they destroy people's lives. You go into any grocery store, you're going to see people buying their basic necessities. They're buying milk and bread and food for their kids with a credit card. Workers are filling up their gas tanks with a credit card. People get behind. Nobody in this country should have to pay 25 or 30% or more interest rates on their credit card. Now, what's interesting about that is we're going to introduce legislation. We have introduced legislation. We offer an amendment that says 15% should be the top. Now, why did we come up with 15%? The answer is that it's exactly what credit unions in this country today are living with and have lived with for many, many decades. So if credit unions can live with a 15% cap, except under exceptional circumstances, so can our friends on Wall Street. We're going to fight for that amendment as well. Can I ask somebody in the back to maybe get a glass of water, if you could, please? Third issue, and you may know something about this, you may not. We have an institution called the Fed. And the Fed operates in very, very mysterious ways, and the American people know very little about it. And this is an issue, by the way. Which brings together progressives and conservatives. I'll tell you what happened during the bailout. Well, I'll tell you what happened about a year ago. Ben Bernanke came before the, Ben Bernanke is chairman of the Fed, and he came before the budget committee on which I sit. And I said, Chairman Bernanke, would you be so kind as to tell me and the American people which financial institutions during the bailout received trillions of dollars of zero interest loans? The people in Vermont would like to know that. And furthermore, can you tell us how people around the country can get those zero interest loans? You have an 800 number, it might be good. And he said no, he wasn't going to tell me, and he wasn't going to tell the American people. So we introduced legislation to compel him to do that, and we're going to have that amendment coming up within, I suspect, a week or two. Now, you hear a whole lot about welfare scam. Republican friends always worried about somebody ripping off food stamps and welfare. Let me tell you about a welfare scam, which is a real view. We think, we don't know, but we have reason to believe, fairly sure, that some of these large financial institutions receive hundreds of billions of dollars in zero interest loans from the Fed. They took that zero interest loan, you know what they did with it? You think they lent that out to small and medium-sized businesses? No, they put it into government bonds, into treasury bonds. Now how's that for a deal? How would you like this? You get money for zero, and then you get guaranteed 3%. Got a few $1 billion in that account, you're going to make a few bucks, right? Pretty good scam, right? So we are going to take a hard look at that as well. The bottom line, when you talk about Wall Street reform, here's what I consider to be the bottom line. Wall Street, increasingly in recent years, has become an entity unto itself, separated from the real world and what we call the productive economy. The economy where people produce products and goods. And they sit over there doing things like betting on whether or not the subprime mortgage market will go up or down, and making billions and billions of dollars if they bet the right way that it was going down. So what you are seeing is Wall Street, rather than investing in the productive economy and helping businesses grow jobs, have become a huge gambling casino which has no productive value at all. So what we are trying to do is create a new Wall Street and introduce the financial institutions to the United States of America so that they can supply the kinds of credit that small and medium-sized businesses desperately need. I talk to businessmen every day. They say, we have customers who want to buy our products. They can't get the credit that they need. We are ready to expand, create new jobs. We can't do that. And the irony is, a study just came out recently, which said that those banks that were bailed out have been tighter in terms of lending money to small and medium-sized businesses than the banks that were not bailed out. So what we need is a new Wall Street integrated into the real economy, helping our business community expand and create the jobs that we need. Let me say a word about healthcare, and then I'm going to say a few words about politics, and then we'll open it up to your questions and comments. Let me be very clear in saying what I think many of you also share, is that at the end of the day, the only way that this country is going to provide quality, comprehensive, universal, and cost-effective health care is through a single-payer national health care. In this room, in this state, in this country, there are millions and millions of people who agree with us. Unfortunately, not so many of them are in the United States Senate or in the House of Representatives. We have thousands and thousands, at least 17,000 physicians in an organization called Physicians for a National Health Care Program, who are single-payer advocates. We have the largest nurses union in the country in California, single-payer advocates, all over the country. We have strong support for single-payer. Now, it seems to me, let me tell you a story, divert for a moment, and tell you what a country did not so long ago in a rational pursuit of real health care reform. In 1995, Taiwan, which is a small country, about 23 million people, they had a very bad health care system. It was kind of like our healthcare system. A lot of people were uninsured. It was expensive. It was extremely unpopular. And what they did is they said, you know what? We're going to form a commission, and we're going to go all over the world and see what ideas work on healthcare. We'll go to America, we'll go to Canada, we'll go to all the countries. And we'll see. We'll take the best ideas. They ended up with a single-payer system, which in fact is more cost-effective than the Canadian system. There were a lot of stuff with smart cards, so that there's almost no paper there, which saves a lot of money. The administrative costs are very, very low. It has today, because my chief counsel was just there a few weeks ago, it has 80% popularity. In other words, in Taiwan, people are very proud of their system. They feel very positive about their system. It is cost effective. Why is it cost effective? Because when you take out the profit motive of the insurance company, and all of the bureaucracy and administrative costs associated with profiteering, in this country, you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. You get that out, and you actually use that money to provide health care, you can cover all people for a reasonable price. Unfortunately, for many, many reasons, not the least of which are the power of the insurance companies, the drug companies who sell us, by the way, the highest priced prescription drugs in the whole world. I trust many of you know that. Many of the other people in the healthcare industry whose sole function in life is to make as much money as they can. The issue of single payer was never even on the table. Never even on the table. Okay? So what we ended up with is a piece of legislation, which I voted for. With some reluctance, I voted for it, because I thought it helped many, many people. It did. And I thought that it was a step forward. One of the elements that you should know that we fought for, and we got a setback, but it's in the bill, is my guess is that as we move toward a single-payer system, it probably will not be implemented from Washington. It will be probably implemented by one or another states. And in many states, there are very advanced and strong single-payer movements. Vermont happens to be one of them. California happens to be one. Pennsylvania does. I don't know how it is here in Florida. But what happens is if a California, especially in California, but even a small state like Vermont, if single-payer is passed, and we can show that it provides health care to all people in a cost-effective way, trust me, every other state in the country will be looking at it. So, we have language in the exchanges go into effect in this bill in 2014. We originally had language in which said that in 2014, states can would be given a maximum amount of flexibility to move forward, including a single-payer program. That was pushed back, unfortunately, to 2017. I want to get it pushed up again. But we are fighting to give states the option to go forward. In the bill that was passed, the highlights of it, 32 million more Americans will be insured. That is not insignificant. Half through Medicaid expansion, half through government subsidies of private health insurance companies. We have instituted insurance reform so that this obscenity of insurance companies denying people health care because of pre-existing conditions will be eliminated now to kids, later to everybody else, which is significant. What you don't know is that we have put many, many billions of dollars into disease prevention, i.e., we as a system spend a huge amount of money treating people of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, other chronic illnesses. We do not do a particularly good job in trying to prevent those illnesses with the knowledge that we have. A lot of money is going into disease prevention, and within a few years, I think you'll see the manifestation of that language. I worked on one area, which I have considered for a long time to be very, very serious problem within a dysfunctional healthcare system. One of the most dysfunctional areas is the area of primary healthcare. What is not talked about too much in America is that this year, the estimate is from a Harvard study, if you can believe this, that some 45,000 of our fellow Americans are going to die because they don't get to a doctor when they should. Okay? And I have talked to a lot of physicians, about this, almost no physician you talk to who will not tell you that at one or another time in his or her career, people have walked in the door and the doctor said, "Why didn't you come in here a year ago?" And the person said, "Well, I didn't have any health insurance, or I had a very high deductible, or I had a copayment, or I couldn't find a doctor that would take me, I was on Medicaid." And then the doctor looks at that person and knows that that person's situation is terminal. So we lose about 45,000 people a year who don't get to a doctor when they should. Second of all, you have the insane situation that in a country which spends almost twice as much per person on healthcare as any other nation, one of the ways we spend huge sums of money is when people do not have health insurance or can't find a doctor, where do they go when they get sick? They go to the emergency room. Now, depending on where you live, the cost of an emergency room, let's just say I had a very bad cold, and I was really sick, or I had the flu, and I didn't have a doctor. I walk into an emergency room. If I'm in New York City, my guess is probably costs $1,000. In Burlington, Vermont, it'll cost you $500 to $600. That is the most expensive primary health care that's out there. And more importantly, you don't even have a regular doctor to track you. You're being treated episodically. It's a one-shot treatment. No one asks you how you got it. No one's going to follow it up. It is a dumb way to provide primary health care. There is a program in this country, one of the least known, very effective public health programs, called Federally Qualified Community Health Centers. Community Health Centers. They exist all over America. The program was founded in the 1960s by Ted Canary of Massachusetts. And as of today, there are about 7,500 communities that host community health centers, and you have them in Florida. And if you have a community health center, this is what happens. Anybody can walk in the door. If you're on Medicaid, they're delighted to take you because they get a higher reimbursement rate. They take you if you're on Medicare. They take you if you're on private health insurance. If you have no health insurance, they will treat you on a sliding scale basis. Family of four, $23,000. In Vermont, it might cost you $5 to see a doctor. In addition to that, there is dental care, which in my state is a very serious problem, mental health counseling, and the lowest cost prescription drugs available in the United States of America, which is a serious problem. What we did in this bill, and I worked very, very hard on this with Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina, what we did is in a 5-year period, we are going to double the number of community health centers in America. We're going to go from 20 million people accessing them to over 40 million people. And what is particularly interesting is this is going to cost us $12.5 billion, and you know what? We're going to make up that money. We're going to save money at the end of the day because we're going to keep people out of the emergency room. We're going to keep people from getting sicker than they should have and ending up in the hospital. So that was an important part of the bill. So I think healthcare is a step forward, but I think we've got a long, long way to go, and as all of you should know, like any other piece of legislation in any area, we can change it tomorrow. And many of us will be working on it, taking out some of the weak parts and trying to strengthen it. Let me say a few words about politics, and then we'll open up to questions. The question, and it's a difficult question, and honest people have differing opinions on it. But here's what I think the political question of the day is. A year and a half ago, when Obama was sworn in, there was an enormous amount of enthusiasm in this country. Democrats, as you know, had done very well in the House race, in the Senate race, governor's races all over the country. 2008 was a bad year. We are now a year and a half into the Obama administration. There are political pundits who may or may not be right who think that the Republicans will regain control over the House and that they will win a number of seats in the Senate. There have been governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey where Republicans won very handily. And to everybody's surprise, in Massachusetts, one of the more democratic states in the country, the gentleman who followed Ted Canary was a Republican, Scott Brown. So the question that we have got to ask ourselves, and I'd love to have your opinion on this, is what happened? How did that occur? Now, generally speaking, those of you who study politics know that in off presidential year, it is not uncommon for the president's party to lose votes. Not uncommon. But I think the severity of this situation, the possibility that we're looking at a 1994 tsunami is not good. So I want you to be thinking about why that was the case, what can be done. Politics, you know, between now and November is a lifetime in politics. How do you turn that around? What should the Democratic leadership be doing? All right, let me conclude with that question to you, but let me stop now. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.